SUVs in this. I mean, we need those, a few of those, but we just try to conserve anywhere we can. We got to say on the fuel. We do got to cut back on the SUVs, I guess, but we've reduced our budget every year, and we've made the cuts, and we're just doing well there, I guess. I mean, a lot of counties are struggling. We're pretty good, I think.
Thank you. And Mr. Clark?
Thank you. Meredith, or excuse me, Stephen. We have a situation in which we have a former sheriff convicted of stealing our money, along with his associate, stealing, both collectively, nearly $102,000 of our money. To me, I think that's a lot of fat when $102,000 comes up missing, nobody knows until 2 years later. I believe that there's plenty of room for cuts, and it begins with a goal. My goal is 20%. I will cut everything but needed operations. I will never deny anyone any service. But in the same token, we need to spend our money smartly, which is why I intend to put information on the internet and out in public so the public can have input too. It's not just me. This is not a dictatorship. This is America. People can speak up. They have ideas. They have suggestions. I'll listen. But with the goal of 20% reductions, everything's on the table. When I first arrived here in this county, we had 4 deputies working in this county road patrol. We need to look at all positions, all services, all vehicles, everything across the board. Also, when I came here, our jail was under court order due to overpopulation. We need to keep an eye on that, even though we are making over $1 million on our jail. What good is it if we have to spend $3 million in attorney fees later for overcrowding in a federal lawsuit? I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tessmer, would you like a follow-up?
No.
Mr. Fenwick.
The State Board of Accounts checks our books every year, and they're fine. And we're not under any mandate by the federal government at this time for the overcrowding, because we don't have that situation over there.
Thank you. And Mr. Clark, a follow-up?
Yes, however, we have had overcrowding problems in which it has cost us attorney fees. We need to be very careful, especially since we've had an inmate die in jail this year. I thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to WGRE News for our next question, and we will start with Mr. Fenwick.
All right. On January 1st, 2011, which coincidentally is the same day that whoever wins this race will be put into office, Evidence Rule 617 will be put into action. This rule, enacted by the Indiana State Supreme Court, states that in order for confession to be admitted as evidence in court, it must be electronically recorded. How will this new rule affect the daily functioning of the Sheriff's Office, and how will you adjust to this rule?
We've already prepared for this, and we have a room set up, and the appropriate equipment set up for this. And what this is if there's a felon, they have to be videotaped, and we're already ready for it, so there's no problems there.
Mr. Clark?
Meredith, when I was a trooper, I was always recording people, except back then we had audio tape. Whether I use a digital recorder or audio tape, it shouldn't really matter, but I've always recorded interviews and interrogations for the simple reason is people do lie, and with the recording it's a lot easier to show in court that the person did state what is on record. I thank you.
Mr. Tessmer.
I mean, as the sheriff said, I mean, it's not going to be a hard adjustment. As he just mentioned, they've already got the room set up for it.
Any follow-ups to that?
I just want to advise him that this is a new rule, new law that's coming into effect, and everyone has to do this.
Any other follow-ups? Okay.
Nothing.
We will move on to the next question then, and that will come from the League of Women Voters, and we'll start with Mr. Clark on this question.
Do you think it's possible to get the public to think differently about who needs to be incarcerated? Jails are full of people charged with drug offenses and other nonviolent crimes. Would the public interest be better served by an alternative sentencing or developing other ways for those charged to serve their time?
Karen, I thank you. That's an outstanding question. What we have here in Putnam County is the revolving door justice system where the same people are cycling through the jail again and again and again. Part of my plan, I will release public information revealing who's in the jail, why they're there, and how many times they've been there, to arm the public with information to challenge the courts when they practice leniency. With the information the public knows, they're able to ask the prosecutor why the plea agreement. They're able to ask the judges why the lenient sentencing that only serves to enrich attorneys, with the criminal returning time and again for the same crimes. By releasing the information to the public is better enabled to challenge the elected officials and, if necessary, put them out of office. This is why I believe it is necessary to allow the public to be best informed by opening up the public record.
Thank you. Mr. Tessmer?
Please, I'd like to hear the question again.
Certainly.
That's fine.
And of course, request that if you'd like to hear the question done again.
Yes, it's the longest one I have, so I understand. Do you think it's possible to get the public to think differently about who needs to be incarcerated? Jails are full of people charged with drug offenses or other nonviolent crimes. Would the public interest be better served by alternative sentencing or developing other ways for those charged to serve their time?
If you do the crime, I want you to do the time. Bottom line. I mean, there's so many times that when I made an arrest, before I was even done with the paperwork, they were already let loose. There's nothing more aggravating than that. Now, big believer. If I'm going to arrest you, I want you to spend time in jail. I don't care. If it's worthy of the arrest, then I want you in there.
Thank you. Mr. Fenwick?
We already have something like, we have community corrections where an inmate is allowed to go out on a bracelet and be monitored at all times, and that's an alternative right there. And that's all I have. We already have that in place.
And any follow-ups?
Yes, I have follow-up. My grandfather was murdered in 1971, February 71 in Indianapolis. I know what it's like to be a victim of crime. Even though my grandfather was murdered, I suffered too. When we have a cycle in which a person goes before court looking at a potential 55-year sentence, prosecutor says if you plead guilty, you'll get 25. Person shows up at Indiana Department of Corrections, well, 25 is not 25, it's 12 and a half, and they're out. There is no situation in which that deters crime because it's cutting half and half again the penalty. By bringing the information out, who keeps cycling through, everyone will be able to see the recidivism and challenge the government to correct this situation and be more strict. Thank you.
Mr. Tessmer, follow-up?
No, thank you.
Mr. Fenwick?
I don't have anything.
Excellent.
No.
Thank you. We'd like to thank all of our viewers and listeners. You are currently watching or listening to the Putnam County Sheriff candidates as they face off ahead of the election come November 2nd. The next question comes from the banner graphic, and we will start with Mr. Tessmer.
Okay. What sort of planning process should be undertaken to meet the jail's current and future needs?
Well, currently right now, I think the jail is ran well. I can't knock it if it's not broke. The jail is ran well.
Yes.
There are a few things that I don't think the jail needs, and one is a 3/4 ton heavy-duty pickup truck. I don't know why we have that. I don't know why we have a bunch of pickup trucks. I don't know why our jail staff has take-home vehicles. You know, I don't know why they have telephones. You know, that's just several things that I would change in that. But the way the jail is ran, I'm okay with it. I think it's ran extremely well right now.
Thank you. Mr. Fenwick?
Repeat that question, please.
Of course.
What sort of planning process should be undertaken to meet the jail's current and future needs?
We have a fund that we build on every year to do repairs in the jail. And as of right now, I mean, we annually have inspections by the inspectors of the jail, and we always get great marks. What he's referring to on the trucks, the truck that we have, that's for our inmate workers that go out every day and do cleanup around this community. Every day they're out mowing, weed eating, painting. They've done a lot, they've done thousands and thousands of dollars worth of work at the county courthouse, where the county didn't have to pay anyone for that. So there is a need for those things.
Thank you. And Mr. Clark?
By publishing the public record both in printed form, made available at the sheriff's office and offered to libraries, as well as on the internet. Everyone will be able to see how the Sheriff Merit Board, which is also in charge, in a sense, a civilian charge of the Sheriff's Department, which includes the jail, as well as the commissioners. By putting their information out, you know what is going on within the jail, the services that's needed at the jail. Also, as far as with the jail, with having work crews out in the community, well, that sounds fine. Yeah, if one of those prisoners escape, we risk potential injury to a citizen as well as tax law enforcement to recover that escapee. There is plenty of work that can be done in the jail. I served in the Army. I know how to handle people. I imagine the jail could use a lot of paint, a lot of mopping, a lot of waxing. So I will use the inmates inside the jail to work the jail, because jails were made for inmates, while inmates were made for the jail. I thank you.
Thank you. Follow-up, Mr. Tessmer?
Yeah, I'd just like to go back to the truck that's in the jail. I still don't understand why we need a 3/4-ton heavy-duty crew cab long bed pickup truck. It gets 8 miles to the gallon. I don't understand why our sheriff's department needs that. It's a $50,000 truck. A half-ton pickup truck can do all the needs that we need for the sheriff's department. We're not pulling fifth wheels. We're not pulling heavy-duty equipment. We are taking them, the road crew, for cleaning and picking things up. So I don't know why we need that truck.
And a follow-up for you, Mr.
Well,
Fenley?
let's get back on the truck. This truck also has a snow plow, and we paid $30,000 for it, and it gets 10 miles to a gallon. And as far as the inmates, there's an armed guard with those inmates at all times. It's no different than the State Farm having inmates out working. We've got armed guards with these guys.
And Mr. Clark,
Thank
would you like to?
Yes, I've seen the armed guard. One armed guard, 3 inmates out mowing grass. One goes rabbit. Which one does the guard chase? Does he chase the one that's rabbit and let the other 2 go, or stay with the other 2 and go let the rabbit go? What happens if that inmate breaks in the house, rapes a woman, kills her, like has happened previously, although it wasn't an inmate in Greencastle? How are we to live with our conscience? Also, here we had an incident in which an inmate died in the jail, and my 2 colleagues here are discussing the truck. The jail has plenty of concerns that the public needs to know about, and bringing it out through the public record, promoting open and credibility. Openness and credibility. I thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from WGRE News, and you, Mr. Clark, will be able to address it first.
All right, 2 of the candidates in their opening statements said that they believe drugs is the biggest problem facing Putnam County today. With that, what do you think the biggest drug problem is? Which drug? And how do you hope to combat this?
Any drug is a big problem, even alcohol. And I notice that's been left out, because I've worked several crashes in this county in which drunk drivers killed people. Now, I understand, we're focused on other drugs, but it's a whole collective matter, need total enforcement of the law. I'm not denying drugs is a problem. I'm not denying alcohol is a problem. What my concern is when the credibility is lost because sheriff steals public money, any enforcement action is really difficult to perform because trust is lost. I believe we need to restore trust as we continue to enforce the laws by being open, publishing the public record for everyone to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And the same question goes to Mr. Tessmer.
Which drugs? I can name 3 of them.